And here is my Visual Studio on the bottom. Now remember, make sure that you choose continue without a code. Do not choose create a new project. So click on continue without code. I'm really enjoying it. It's the highlight of my life. So now you have blank screen over here. If you don't have Solution Explorer open, just go to View and you'll see Solution Explorer. And that's really all you need is Solution Explorer. So we're going to go to File, we're going to go to New, and we're going to go to Project, and we have Empty Project here. That's what you want. Click on Next. So we're going to name this, I'm going to name it Football 2 because I believe I already have a football in there and it'll give me a nasty message. So we'll name it Football 2. Now notice that it gives you a solution named exactly for what you want. And you can't change it unless you get rid of this check mark. But don't change it. Just leave it in here and you're good. Leave the check mark in here and you're good. If you don't have this where you want it, just click on the browse window here and select the directory that you want to put it into. I like to put it into the program class. This is the year that I'll be doing it, and this is Visual Studio C++. And all you need to do is click on Create. And it takes sometimes a few seconds. So now we're good to go here. So what you want to do is to create the source file, you're going to right-click on Source File and choose Add. And we want a new item. And we want a C++ file. It's going to give you source as the default name. So we're just going to call it football. Click on Add. And it will add a blank file. So I'll go through these step by step. We have a source file that you can use to start off with, which I recommend that you use. So the first thing you're going to put up here is the comments. And you're going to put your name. Then you're going to put the assignment. This is page 72, number 5. So we'll do chapter, I believe it's 3, page 72, and number 5. This is helpful for me when people turn in the wrong assignment. Then I know exactly which one it is. Then you're going to put in a description of it. So you would put in this program will, missing program, will, and then you put in whatever that the program is going to do. So you put in here, this will get the number of touchdowns, field goals, and so on and so forth, and calculate the final score. So now we need to put in our includes. In this particular one, the only thing we really need is IOStream. And sometimes I mess up and start typing std because it used to be standard IO that you put. So, and every now and then I have a mental breakdown and I put in that as well. So we're going to do include. And notice as you put in the bracket and start typing, it finds it for you. So you can just click the tab key, select it, click the tab key, and you're good. And we're going to do one more, although we don't need it. That allows you to format to decimal places. Then are using namespace and standard. So that allows us to use the library standard without having to type in std and 2 colons. We have to begin with a integer function called main. So I'm going to put in main2 just to show you what will happen. And I always recommend putting in comments in here. So let's see what happens when we try to compile it. In here, I'm just going to put in the system pause. which is nothing more than press any key to continue and a return. So let's try to compile it. Now, it may compile just fine, but when you try to run it, it should, and I haven't done this in a long time. So let's see what happens now every time they make an update. But normally you're going to get a problem if you don't have a main function. And notice that this is kind of grayed out. So let's go to build and compile and let's see what happens. And it should compile just fine, which is good. But let's see what happens when we try to run it. Okay, notice, boom. So there's build errors, and it should tell you that there is no main in here. So you have to have a main function in here. So let's get rid of this here. And then let's try it again. We just go and this allows you to compile and link at the same time. So let's see what happens now. Now we should just get a blank screen that does nothing. So that worked. So there is living proof that you must have it. So now what we need to do is start declaring our variables. So we're going to need a variable to include the touchdowns, number of extra points, and all that. They're all going to be integers. So what I normally do if I'm declaring a bunch of the same data type, I start off with the data type, obviously, and hit the enter key, and then I'm going to type in something description, num touchdowns, and make sure that you initialize it. So once I get done declaring them, I'll go over and explain that. And I'm putting a comma, not a semicolon, because we're technically doing the same thing in here. We're not actually doing another line. So number of field goals. And again, I could have done touchdown and made a capital D, but that's pretty standard, the way to spell it. Then we have num extra points. Oops. Num 2-point conversion.
So you put a period after extra points. Was that a mistake?
That's an error on my part. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Tough class, man. All
right. Just keeping you honest.
Yeah. So, and it's okay to abbreviate in here. Less is more. So notice how this is giving me a red squiggly line. So once I put in a comma, that should take care of it. And we're going to initialize it to 0. And I think we need safeties. Is that how you spell safeties? No, that can't. How do you spell safeties?
Yeah, that's correct. It's ugly, but it's correct.
It was right.
That's right.
No, it's IES.
Well, yeah. That look wrong.
It just looks
It's an ugly word.
Yeah, it sure is. So now we have it in here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to comment the touchdowns in here. And I'm hitting the tab key a couple times so I can get them to line up. And I'll just put one line number of touchdowns scored. Spelling is not really good for me. Scored in the game. And then that kind of makes the rest of these self-explanatory. Yeah, you can go number of field goals scored, but as long as it's self-explanatory, that's fine. Most of them are not going to be this clear in here. So now what we need to do is we need to assign the point value for each one. And the rule of thumb is there's something that cannot be changed, then you use a constant. So notice now I initialized every single variable here. So that is my rule, that you must initialize them. So please make sure that you do it. And I have a whole checklist on things that you can look at. And before you submit it, make sure that you follow the checklist, and that should help you. So if I want something that cannot be changed, I'm going to type in the word const. Now notice the camel case, by the way. The first word is all lowercase, and the first letter of every other word is capitalized. So that's why I have num field goals. I could have capitalized the D if I wanted to, extra points in here. So that's called camel case, so make sure that you follow that, because I do take off for it if you don't. So we want constant. Now these are a little bit different. They must be in all caps. That way it stands out like a sore thumb that this is something that cannot be changed. So I'm going to put points, and I'll put touchdown. Now notice this time I have capitals and I separated the word with a little underscore there. And then you must initialize it. So the points, and I could have put points per touchdown, is 6. So again, let me, all right. So the reason why this is a squiggly red line is because I did not declare the data type. So that equals 6. Then comma, and we'll do points, field goals, and you could do this, or you can just type goals, whatever. I think that's pretty. So the purpose of the underscore is to make it easier to read. So either way is okay. Again, that's kind of your call on that. Then points, extra. I'm just going to make it extra to shorten it, and that would be 1. And I should have put points. You want to be consistent. And points, 2, point, in there, and points, safeties, and that should be 2. All right, so we have.
Do you need to assign a value for the 2 point?
Mark here is because I did not initialize it, so this would have to be 2, and we're good. So now we have our variables that we need. We need one more variable, and that is going to be the score. So let's just put a comma here, and we'll put, we can put final score. And set that as 0. All right, let's see. So that looks good. And if you want, you can put an extra line here, but only put 1. Some people put like 5 of them in there. It makes it really harder to read. If you feel it's readable, better to put the extra line there, that's fine. Again, that's your call. So now we pretty much have everything that we need. So these are things you should be doing in the IPO, thinking about what are we going to actually do. So let's go and start doing our code now. So I'm going to do one blank load in here. So what we need to do is we need to get the number of touchdowns, field goals from the user. So in order to do that, we have to prompt the user from cout and do how many touchdowns. I'm putting a question mark and a space in here. Now, what I want to do is comment out the namespace, and you'll see what will happen. So now, all of a sudden, the cout has a line. So I would have to put in std : to get it to work. Well, I don't want to do that. That's too much. So put in the using. You may see a video that recommends not doing that. In this class, let's do it. And then we're just going to get it. So console out is going to print how many touchdowns, and console in, which is cin. And if you do this, you put them the wrong way, you'll get a red mark. So you know, oh, they're the wrong way. And then we just need to put in what do we want to do. So now, once I start typing num, notice I have all my stuff in here. I don't have to finished typing, I can type a T, and it doesn't matter whether it's uppercase or not, it'll find it for you. Click on here and hit the tab key. Don't hit enter, hit the tab key. And then let's run it here. And I'm just going to put in C out. And then I'm typing end L. Because if we don't, the system pause will probably be on the same line and it'll look ugly. So what I recommend doing is starting off, putting in your information, do one thing, test it. Do one more thing, test it. Do one more thing, test it. So let's go and run it, and we should just get the number of touchdowns. If something's wrong, then we're going to know right off the bat. How many touchdowns? Hey, we got Tom Brady, 8. And touchdowns. So that works. So the next thing, and you can click on this to get rid of it. So the next thing we need to do is see out how many. And I'm going to copy this so I don't have to type that so many times. I may have an extra one, so I'll delete it. So now I can go how many, we did touchdowns, how many field goals. How many extra points? And notice how it's lining up automatically. So we have extra points, how many 2-point conversion. And we did extra points, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we got touchdown, field goals, extra points, 2-point conversions. Final score is what we're missing. All right, so I don't want to miss anything. 2-point conversions, how many?
You need safeties too, right?
That's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
I just couldn't figure out why I only had 5 things here and there were 6 variables till I realized that we had the total score. So now we have it here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to get our C in here. And we're not calculating anything right now, so we can type all this stuff in here. So we want field goals, num field goals. I'm hitting the tab key. C in, num extra points, hitting the tab key. C in, num. What are we doing now? 2-point conversions. And let's see, num safeties. Now I want to show you a problem when we do this. Let's see, num safeties. CN is a terrible operator. The reason being is as soon as it gets a character that is not part of the actual variable, it thinks that you're done and puts it in the buffer. In other words, if I was asked how many touchdowns and then I typed I typed in 6 and then space and then 4, it's not even going to ask me how many field goals are there, because it would get it from here. So let me show you. We have number of touchdowns. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this is something that always beware of. All right, so let's compile it and running. A shortcut is Control F5. So let's put in 5, put a space, and then 4. Let's see what happens. So notice that it printed how many field goals, but it didn't give me an opportunity to get it. So it's not going to skip the C out, but it'll put in the number of field goals should be 4. So let's just do 2, 2, and 2. And number of field goals, and of course we have cosmetic. And this is what I was talking about, why you want to put the end L in here. So bear that in mind. Now, we're not going to really worry about that right now. Normally what we do to counteract that is when we start getting into strings, we use a get line and then an ignore, which dumps everything there. Another issue is if you want to put in first name and then last name, and you type in your first name space last name, it's going to put all of that in as 2 separate variables. So be careful on that. So I'm going to pause this video right now. It's 21 minutes long, and we'll put it into 2 parts. So let me pause it, and then I'll start it on the back.